Hey guys, welcome to the Neglected Podcast. This podcast is not to change your mind, but to invite you into somebody else's narrative. This is a podcast to give a voice to the neglected. It is also an opportunity for all of us to engage.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Neglected Podcast. My name is Nick Schultz. You can check me out at Schultzy Time. And today I'm here with producer Quinn, like always. What's going on, Quinn?
Hey.
And today we have a very special guest, and I'll let her introduce herself because she has one of the coolest names of all time.
Thank you for that. My name is Kharlybia Roane.
Kharlybia Roane.
Yes.
All right. And so I've got to ask, the name is really cool. Background of it, where it came from, how'd you get it, what it means.
Yeah. So my dad came up with the name because my mom and my dad were in the hospital for a couple days not knowing what the name because they actually expected for me to be a boy. But it's my two grandmothers' names, Carrie and Olivia, just combined. So Kharlybia is what it is to make both sides happy.
That is really cool.
Yes.
Those kind of names make me want to rename myself. It's just really rich and stuff. All right. So Kharlybia, how old are you and where are you from?
I'm 24 years old. And I'm from Columbia, South Carolina.
Very cool. So
Yes.
You're a Southerner as well, I guess.
Yeah. I guess.
All right. So Kharlybia and I met at the church I was working at here in downtown Savannah when I was running all the family stuff and kid ministry stuff. And you were going to church there and
Yes.
you signed up to be a volunteer, which I was super thankful for. And that's where we met.
Yes.
And kind of a crazy thing that happened, if you don't mind me sharing, is maybe it was only a few times after you started volunteering is all of a sudden you start having a health issue
Yeah.
in the middle of kind of church and service. And I think you were working with like toddlers at the time, which
Yeah.
probably one of my kids was in there. And I got a call over like, hey, Kharlybia is not feeling well at all. And you were kind of laying on the ground and not explain kind of your health.
My health issues.
Yeah.
Well, I have sickle cell, and for those who may not be familiar with it, it's a blood disorder which causes my red blood cells to be shaped like a sickle. And majority of my red blood cells are shaped like a sickle. Actually, is inherited blood disorder, so it's not contagious or anything like that. Both of my parents have the trait, which makes me have the full-blown illness. And so what it does is it gets trapped in your red blood cells or vessels, and that way it does not carry any normal red blood cells throughout the body. And as we all know, blood carries oxygen to the brain. And when that happens, like your sickle cells are causing it not to carry oxygen throughout the body. So it causes pain in the joints. So for me, most of my pain comes in my back and sometimes in my ankles and my knees, but mostly my back. And in situations like that is urgent to seek attention immediately because, no oxygen is not fun. And sometimes it can be deeper than what's on the surface. More times than none, it's caused by something else, whether it be the weather, whether it be stress. A lot of times it could just be small things like, bladder infections or things like that. And that's how your body is, retaliating, or even sometimes colds too. So that's really what it is. And I've had it all my life. As mentioned before, I got it from my father and my mother. And with it being 2019, almost 2020, we have so many different medications and different doctors who are trying to become more informed. So it's not so rare as it was maybe, I'll say, 20 years ago. So,
I mean, you're tough, Quinn. She is really tough.
Thank you.
I've been to the hospital to visit you when you were getting like blood transfusions and you're hooked up with all sorts of, I hate needles. I hate hospitals. Like it really freaks me out. And, sometimes because your parents weren't even in town, you just have to go there.
Yeah.
And, sometimes you're by yourself until somebody else shows up and you're just laying there with all these needles in you and blood going on. And I can tell you're in a lot of pain. Like you're just holding yourself, trying not to do that. But, it's not just a one-time thing. You've been through that. You've been through it multiple times. And I don't know. It's like, do you ever get used to it? It's got to be horrible.
I mean, I never quite get used to hospital visits because every time it's a different experience for me. But I'm most definitely used to the pain. I know what to expect. I know what to do. And I know what not to do. But as far as like being in a hospital, that was new for me because me living completely alone in Savannah, that was I think maybe the first time you visit me was my first time being alone in a hospital. And I think that's when my mom like reached out to you, whatever. And it was more so of like being frightened because my mom was also dealing with her issues with having cancer at the time. So it was kind of difficult for me to be able to like keep a ease mind, because it's like, okay, well, I have to stay strong for myself and for my mother, because it's like, how do you call your mother up and say, hey, I'm in the hospital, quite severe, but yeah, she's also in the hospital as well, dealing with what she has to deal with.
You didn't want to burden her or anything?
Exactly. We were actually in the hospital at the same time. But prior to that, she and my father came down, and I think that was one of the most like worst situations where I had to have like ICU treatment. But that was, you know, of course, my mom and my dad came down for that one. But this time, my mom wasn't able to come down because she had her own issues.
Yeah, it's so tough. Your mom dealing with cancer, and then you're going through that in different cities. Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. Let's backtrack then and just even talk about your family background, and then we'll kind of go back into that story, but kind of where you grew up, how you grew up, what your family dynamic was, maybe neighborhood dynamic. And
well, I grew up living with my mother, but I did have both parents in my life. My parents just got divorced at a very young age. I think I was about 12. But, you know, I've always had a relationship with both my family, my mother and my father. And to look back at it, I think I had actually an amazing childhood, because imagine just going to different houses every other weekend, and both parents are very loving. So it was like, as a kid, you're like, oh, well, mommy wants to do it, I'm going to go to dad. And I'm a daddy's girl, so I tend to get my way at times.
That is good, because it doesn't always end that way.
No, it doesn't. But I don't know. I grew up mostly the only child, even though I have siblings. I'm the youngest. So by the time I even got to the age of like middle school, I was the only one in the house. So it was just, you know, sometimes my mother and I did a lot of modeling growing up because of my height. I'm 5'11" right now. Pretty sure I was almost that height at that time. Wow. And, you know, with me having this illness, I couldn't play sports. And even if I didn't have an illness, I'm sure I wouldn't play sports. I'm just not. I don't have the coordination. So I modeled a lot, and that actually eased my mind a lot from my illness. And yeah, I started modeling as well in Savannah too, as SCAD. And it was an experience, but it's not my passion anymore.
Right. So when you were younger, what kind of school or neighborhood did you grow in? Was it like racially, ethnically? What kind of environment were you in?
Well, my father, I grew up in a predominantly Black neighborhood, which was all that I knew. I didn't really know much outside of it, and I enjoyed it. And then after moving out, I moved into more of a diverse neighborhood with my mother. And I never really quite had issues with it, really, you know. And if we did, I think I was too young to ever notice any type of change or any type of issues, if there were any. I vividly remember my mom and I just always going on bike rides and walking down the neighborhood and never having problems. But it was also a experience for me just going to school. I literally live like maybe a 2-minute walk from my middle school. I never walked, though. My mom was too afraid to let me walk to school for the problems of maybe just being an overprotective parent. I don't think it was anything because of like afraid of something will happen to me.
Yeah.
But I grew up in pretty diverse neighborhoods. And then when I got older, my mom moved out into the church I went to at the time, built a neighborhood right across the street from it. And of course, my mom had to be the first one to move out there. So I grew up with maybe for a good year, it was just my mom and I out there. And then of course, people I knew from high school started moving out there, and I gained relationships and friendships with them. And that's the house she lives in now. And it's so many people there, so diverse. Like the local college students live there and rent it out. Then we have older people, and we have younger people who are starting families. So, you know, I used to have relationships with some of them, but they all moved to college like myself. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
When did either like health or gender or race, when did any of those kind of, I don't want to say issues come to play, but do you remember in any of those scenarios how old you were? You remember like, oh, I am maybe different when I didn't think I was, and people might look at me differently because of being a woman or being Black or being having these kind of health things?
I first noticed that I had an illness that other people didn't at a very young age, actually, because I was always in the hospital. And I realized that wasn't a norm for regular children or normal children. And then I think I'm always constantly reminded that I have the illness because I I forget. And so I would talk to people and they say, you're in the hospital quite more than the average person. I'm like, really? Because I'm not in the hospital as much as the normal person who has sickle cell. So I get like, really, this is different? But I didn't actually, as far as race, I didn't come into any issues with race until I got a little bit older and then I came to Savannah.
Okay.
Yeah, most of my issues when I was younger never really happened. I remember taking a trip to Virginia one time and there were some issues there. Then other than that, my eye-opener realizing that, race was a thing was when I moved to Savannah. And I'm not sure if that's because of the things that were happening politically or if that was just because of the experiences that I was, dealt with.
Do you ever remember your parents having to teach you anything about your race just to prepare you for anything, or was it just a natural?
Yeah, no, actually my dad more than anything. My dad always, and my mom as well, but I remember just growing up, my parents would always tell me you would have to do 10 times more than the next person. And
just specifically for your race? Or?
Yeah, just for my race. As a Black female, it's like you have to work 10 times harder. And, I never really understood what that meant. I just thought like, we all have to work hard. And my eye was like, okay. But then looking back at it, my dad was always sending me subliminal messages to tell me like, you have to really work hard in this world. And if it wasn't like for those small messages then, I probably would still be kind of confused now, because I think like as a young kid, I was not aware of race. I wasn't aware like, okay, Black and white. Like, of course I can see it, but I didn't know there was a harsh difference. I grew up learning the regular textbook message of what race is and, slavery and all that other stuff, which doesn't do much now for, the children growing up and learning about American history. But
speaking of history, what is your family's lineage?
If only I knew. I just know my dad is from Delaware. My mom is from a town called Georgetown, South Carolina. And it's a very, very country part of the South Carolina. It's near Charleston. I just know that my grandmother had 14 children, and there's 12 alive today. Yeah. Wow. And they grew crop for a living. My grandfather did crop for a living and sold it to the local grocery stores. On my father's side, not as many, I think 4 siblings altogether. And my dad, from being from Delaware, and if you know anything about Delaware, it's not the safest neighborhood. And so that's where a lot of my dad's passion about being, working harder than the next person comes from, because, it's even with visiting up there and having family there still and just looking in the news, there's always something happening, whether it's shootings or anything like that. Just kind of makes me realize this is why he's so passionate and so about pushing to being like who I am today or what he wanted me to become. But as far as like history of who I am, unfortunately, I don't really know. And of course, that goes back to years back where, our history was stolen for us. And a lot of people go, well, to be of a white person or to be of any other descent other than African American is kind of, you have that blessing of knowing exactly where you're from. You exactly know where your heritage is. And for me and many other people out there like me, you don't know. And to do at Ancestry.com or any other things out there that do like heritage finds, it's kind of skeptical to even think that, because they've erased so much and they lied so much about what our history was to the point where we had to start over from scratch. But eventually I do wish to find out exactly what I am. Yeah. Because having sickle cell is originated from Africa, so
right.
It has to be somewhere down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like your dad was really trying to prepare you for things you were going to have to overcome. Yeah. I'm sure, because I'm a father and, if I had to be more concerned about my child's race and gender and then also all those health issues, that would be a lot for your parents.
I think my mom was more so involved with my illness, and then my dad was more so involved with just being, growing up in the world. And a combination of the two was a good mixture.
Okay. All right. So now I'm interested in talking about how you got to Savannah, because you came and you attended the SCAD, which is the Savannah College of Art and Design. Yes. How did that all happen? I mean, maybe modeling was part of it and your passion to do those kind of things, but how did you get in that school? Because
It's a funny story.
It's a tough school. Yeah. It's an expensive school. Yeah. I mean, I'm always interested to see how people get into SCAD.
Well, I did not think to go to SCAD until maybe a month before I applied. But in high school, I had this idea that I was going to be a forensic chemist because my dad was a deputy sheriff, and I remember just going to work with him sometimes. And then I also had this love for science. Don't know what I was thinking. And I literally didn't even apply to many schools because, as I told you, I was a model and I thought that was what I was going to do with my life. And then I went to a modeling convention in Miami and I won Model of the Year, and I had many scholarships that came with that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Back in 2013. And one of the scholarships I got was to go to this school called New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts. And I also got one for and can't remember the other name, but I didn't go there. And while I was up there, I had the opportunity to really do more background work with acting, because I also acted at that time. I knew I wanted to do some type of acting, but after graduating, I realized that's not what I wanted to do. But I went to New York and I was able to become a cinematographer, act and do sound and all this other cool stuff that I never experienced before. And I was like, wow, I'm actually pretty good at this and I'm having fun. What? That's possible? So I went back home, told my mom how much of a good time that I had, and I didn't want to go to school for science anymore. And let's say I got back in July, and we were like, well, let's find some schools in the South, because I didn't want to move up north, especially with my illness. I can't be around the cold too much. And we started Googling places, and then SCAD popped up. I applied, got accepted in August, and moved in September.
Wow. Just like that.
Just like that.
So you weren't planning on it. This whirlwind happens. You come to Savannah, and what are your thoughts? Because you already mentioned it earlier about living in this kind of a place. And was it more because of the school and the people that were there? Or was it just the whole
both
the culture here? And
both.
Okay.
Even as a freshman, I really didn't quite understand it yet. I just knew the school was diverse and it was different. And then years passed by where I'm getting more involved with who I am, and a lot of things in the media started to change my perspective like that. So the Black Lives Matter movement started happening, and even though that's been on the surface for a while, it started catching my eye. And because I'm a Black person, and Black lives also do matter, and so I then started looking into okay, what can I do as a filmmaker to make a statement, to bring a voice to issues.
Did you resonate with it? Were you feeling certain things? Was it just merely oh, there's people that are like me and I don't resonate as much? Or was it wow, this is really affecting me because I'm seeing things that I didn't see before, but now I have been viewed this way, or I have felt this way. Can you explain why that was starting to click in for you?
Because I saw things in the media that I never seen before, and I started to resonate with me that this is happening in my own community, and it affects myself too, whether if it's in my face or not. Is somehow going to affect me down the road. And I think I vividly remember lying in my room one time, and it was what's the word? There was something happening on the news where it was a whole bunch of protests happening, and I can't remember exactly where it was located, and I'm not sure if it's important or not, but I remember it being an issue, and it was a lot of violence and just vandalism happening, and I'm because people are trying to show their voice. This is the way that happens. All this anger built up from years on years on. This is the calmest way I believe that it could have happened, is by the protests that was happening. And from there on, I was like, okay. And I found the passion for it. I got connected with a club at school called the Black Student Association. And I became the treasurer for that for a year. And then with building a community or building a family with them, I became the president for 2 years of the Black Student Association. And even being with them and hearing other people's story from different parts of the world, I became more passionate and fell in love deeper and deeper. And it made me never want to look back. And everything I do is for Black culture. Everything I breathe, sleep, eat is Black culture, because there's not many people out there that's doing it, and at least for the way that I want to. There's stories, now, luckily, thankfully, there's stories now that's coming out. We have Jordan Peele, who's an amazing director, and we have stories that came out the Netflix series that just won an Emmy.
The 13th?
No, not the 13th is a good documentary.
That is a good one.
But not that one. I think it's called When They See Us. That's what it's called, When They See Us, and that one was a really good one. But stories like that has inspired me to continue to move within film.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on Netflix. 13th is crazy.
Yes.
Really good. And then the Khalif Browder.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that one's good as well. I
think Jay-Z kind of produced that one, but that Khalif Browder, it's like a 4 or 6 part series on him going to jail for just stealing a backpack and like being stuck in there. And it blew my mind. Yeah. It absolutely blew my mind. Yeah. And I'm thankful that people are putting those stories out there and, you know, not done in a way too, where it's like trying to, you know, be, you know, make white people feel like they did it, or it's a, have a political statement necessarily. It's just like, here is what happened.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can actually see it, hear the voices and be aware of it. Because I was like, it shocked me. Yeah.
Because I think it's time out for pointing the finger, you know, because we all know about our history. You know, we all know about slavery. We all know about, you know, segregation. We all know about civil rights movement. We all know about that. And, you know, if we don't, then, you know, there's movies out there, there's books out there, people like myself can inform you. But it's time out for like pointing the finger like, oh, you did this back way back when. Exactly, way back when. Now, let's inform the ignorant. Let's inform those who may not exactly know, because you can't continue to blame somebody without giving them the information they need to become and grow as a better person. And I think when coming to SCAD, I knew I wanted to do something with film. I knew I wanted to be a cinematographer. And I was like, this isn't for me. It's a lot of math involved with being a cinematographer. I didn't want to be it. And I also realized it wasn't. And then this could have also been the reasons for me to stay in it, but it wasn't a field for a Black female, you know? It's not really much of a field for females in general. And I started to realize that like SCAD has its own little world that it kind of reflects Hollywood. And I just knew that I wasn't treated right on sets, and I did not want to deal with that in the real world. Yeah, I could have fought for my positions. I could have fought for things, but I don't want to continue to fight for things that should just be common knowledge and given to somebody who has the craft. So I actually took an editing class, of course, because we have to, and I fell in love, and I decided to be an editor. But I know there's multiple times when you're in SCAD, or when you go to SCAD, you have to pitch something the first day, what type of film you want to do. And as I said before, everything I do is around Black culture. And it was kind of like sad to like pitch your movie and nobody wants to be on board. And I'm like, wow, okay. And I never really thought like, oh, these people who aren't voting for mine, you're racist. No, never that. I think it's a lot of fear, really, what it is. It's a fear to do something wrong, the fear to slip up. Yeah. And I just took that and I moved on with it. And by my senior year, which was like last year, I was able to do my own thesis. And from there, I really was able to make something work.
That's cool. Like you said, I think a lot of it is fear because everything is so divisive right now. Yeah. It's just something where people can have conversations and people don't have conversations about this stuff. It's like everything we see is very divisive, accusatory. Yeah. And people also don't like agendas. So it's like if I feel like this side has an agenda for something and it's just about making me feel horrible or saying I'm wrong. Yeah. Our society is horrible at creating environments to come together, talk about things, do things together, where it's like, no, there's going to be a little bit of grace there. It's like we can work, and if we can talk through it and we can work on stuff together, but it's not. And we don't see that. That's the problem too. So like this stuff you see in the news or hear on the radio or the way people post stuff on social media, everything is, it's not inviting people in to something. It's putting up a wall and saying, this is it. This is what I believe, and, you know, kind of stuff. And it's tough. It's frustrating for me to see too. And, you know, just seeing that you're trying to combat that a little bit too. And what that's like for you, especially from your perspective, because it's way different than mine. I'm trying to bring in people that are, you know, majority and don't even see the stuff that's happening. For sure. And you're trying to give a voice to the minority and bring people in too. It's not like you don't want just all Black people doing everything you're working on. It's like you want people to come together and work and care about the issues you're going through. Right, exactly. Head on, exactly what it is. It was
I think I also had like a step stool at SCAD, because with being the president of the Black Student Association, people always look towards me to say something, or to be the voice of reason, or to be like that go-to person sometimes that they just have questions about anything that's happening in the media. And that kind of made me feel like, okay, I gotta get used to this, because as I said, I do want to make I don't know if I said it already. I want to make documentaries.
I think you do, yeah.
Yeah, I want to make documentaries on Black culture. And I think, prior to this, I told you I was going to go to get my master's in Atlanta. I'm going to get my master's in African American Studies, so I can be even more knowledgeable on the things that I make, so that I can be credited as well. Like, hey, I kind of know what I'm talking about. So
yeah, that's really neat.
Yeah.
Wow. So give me some examples of ways that, this podcast is called The Neglected. And I would like, if you have some off the top of your head, just ways that you have felt neglected in like just specific instances. And it can be from whatever, female, race, culture, health, just ways that, like that wasn't right, kind of thing.
Gosh, I can speak on so many things. Well, I want to first talk about my health, because it's the most important thing to me. With having sickle cell, it's invisible illness. You look at me, you would never know that I have sickle cell, because, other than this cool thing I have right here, it's called a port. And I don't have to get poked by needles anymore. They can just poke this thing and I get all the type of...
So you just push it?
No. It is kind of a needle. They put a needle through this, but it's not my skin. That bump is actually a port underneath the skin.
Oh, wow.
And they just poke it, and I can get medicine and I can give blood, and it's pretty cool.
It is cool. Like, I'm shaking already, Quinn, just even like thinking about like putting a needle in that thing.
It's pretty cool though. It's amazing. It saves me a lot of pain, because Lord knows how many times I've gotten poked. And like mind you, I've had this illness all my life. I don't have any more veins left. That's good. They have to poke me at least twice before they get anything.
All right, I need some water.
Sorry, let's change it.
Just talking about it's like freaking me.
But no,
seriously, Quinn. It's like when you go to the hospital and see her when she's having like a blood transfusion or something. I mean, gosh, it's tough, man. It is really tough. She is laying down there with all these needles, blood's going here and there, and like, you're trying to keep yourself from shaking.
Yeah.
Because you're in so much pain, and you can tell how much pain you're in, but you have to stay calm. And it's just the burden or the blessing, however I guess you look at it. If you think of it that way as an opportunity, I don't know how you view it, but
both.
Yeah, you're one tough girl.
Thank you.
But yeah, go ahead. Keep sharing.
But no, there's back to saying like it's an invisible illness, because there's times where I've had like doctors question, are you really in pain? Are you really here to get like treatment, or are you here to seek drugs? Most recently, I've had maybe a couple months ago, it was a time where I was just in pain back to back, in and out of the ER. And, all the hospitals here are connected. They all can tell when, the last time you've been in the hospital or the ER. And this one last visit, and he just kept asking me, when was the last time you went to Memorial? And I was like, well, I went there the other day. And, with me going to the hospital, like, it happens. And he was like, well, you need to find a doctor here that helps you, so you won't have to come to the ER, because narcotics isn't the answer. I'm like, to be honest with you, if somebody is seeking medication for the drug fund of it, the hospital is the last place, because it's not
somewhere else.
Yeah, it's not fun,
Yeah.
It's not fun to look that crazy. It's not fun to get poked many times. It's not fun to get the hospital bill afterwards just for some narcotics. Come on. Obviously, I'm in deeper pain than just to have a scratch and itch that I need that I've never even had, So that's always a time where, it's kind of hard to have that voice of saying, hey, I really need attention because I'm sick, because like you can't have that voice because you're actually sick. My mind is focused on other things than to educate you something that you've been going to years and years to studying about, So I feel like, sickle cell is one of those things, and any other illness as well. But like sickle cell in general, like is one of those illnesses where lots of doctors and nurses need to really be informed more. I feel like nurses are more so informed than doctors, because there's been so many nurses who've come to me, and like there was an instance where I was really ill, and I was sent to the ER through ambulance, and the doctor just treated me normally. Yeah. He didn't send me home. Then the next day I was right back because I wasn't better. And the nurse ran up to me and was like, oh, I just knew you were going to come back. I just knew you weren't good enough to go home. And I'm like, well, why didn't you speak up? Because if I wasn't bold enough to come back because of afraid of what this doctor could have said, oh, you're back, you want more medicine? Imagine if I just stayed home because I was afraid that a doctor was going to judge me again. Lord knows where I would have been today. So situations like that, that's just like more research needs to be done. More people or in the medical field needs to be able to believe us when we speak, because I promise you, not any sickler that I've met has been seeking for drugs. That's the last thing. We seek for a relief of pain. That's it. And I mean, that's one of the many stories of feeling neglected with this illness. But other than that, this illness has been able to give me a jump start in things where I've become a voice for many other people. Just like example, doing what I'm doing now with sitting here with you today. But as far as like being neglected as far as a African American, in film, there's times where, as I mentioned on set, when I wanted to be a cinematographer, you know, a friend and I came together and decided to work on a project together. And he actually came to me. He was like, "You're interested in doing cinematography work, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Cool. You want to be the cinematographer on this project?" I said, "For sure. Why not?" And I was like, "Okay, cool." And he was like, "Yeah, if you know any other people to be on set for a PA." I'm like, "Sure, okay." And I did that. And my roommate, who was also a film major at the time, came on set. Long story short, she turned into the cinematographer and I was the PA. The moment I touched the camera, he said, "Put it down. You don't know what you're doing." I didn't even have to press record. I literally held it and he told me to give it back to her. And my friend, she's an Asian, so, you know, she's not black. But, you know, it could have been this favoritism he had towards her and not me. And I've actually, you know, felt some type of way to the point where, you know, I told the professor about it and things had to be done. But, you know, and in that instance right there made me realize this is nothing that I want to do. Like, I don't want to continue to have situations like that in like a field that I'm passionate about. I'm not going to continue to fight for something that should be just obvious, you know?
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, kind of as we wind down stuff, I'd love to get any feedback you have of, you know, how can people engage in just having conversations and meeting, working with, and doing the kind of stuff that we're doing now with people like in the real world out there, where you're at, like from your perspective. Yeah,
I think for one, I feel like a lot of people are just afraid to have a conversation about certain things, but the main thing to do is to ask questions, you know? Because to ask questions means you're interested. It means you want to learn more. And I think that's where it starts off, because, you know, you can have this mindset of like, oh, you know everything. Then the moment you open your voice, you sound crazy. And it's like, maybe if I reflect about what I said, and maybe if I could have formed that in a question instead of a statement, you know, the conversation could have went longer. And I think that's really what it is. And now we're in an age where things are changing, things are progressing. You know, people are standing up and having a voice for themselves, whether that's, you know, the Black community, whether that's women's rights, you know, whether that's LGBT community. They're standing up for themselves and they're making a voice. And a lot of times it's just ask questions, you know. A lot of times you don't have to be afraid, because to be, you know, when you're afraid, you're also a part of the problem. You can be afraid and ask questions, or you can be afraid and just stand back and not do anything. So I really think that has a lot to do with it. And also being an activist and having a voice for yourself, if that's the type of a person you are and if that's the type of route you want to go on, you know, you know, for me, I feel like what it is finding a good community where you feel that you fit in and see the things that they do. Volunteering is also a good thing. All about volunteering, you know, because the one thing that you can do and that you put down as an experience is volunteering. You know, it's literally free. You can find it anywhere. You can do it, and it actually looks good too. And not many people do that more. So that's my age. And I don't know why. I don't know what the fear of volunteering is. Maybe time. A lot of people my age love their own time. But
time, and I think we're culture of, you know, we don't want to admit it, but just selfish with things too. And we got a bunch of kids that are growing up that we're not teaching them how to engage with each other. Exactly. It's a phone, it's a TV, it's this. I mean, even us now, we communicate with people mostly through our phone instead of face-to-face conversations. So when you actually have to go do something with somebody that you're not maybe comfortable with, you know, like it shouldn't be that hard, but it's hard. It's hard, and it's only getting worse.
Yeah, it took a lot for me, really, because I am more so, I like to keep to myself, but I always was somebody who was in a community. I remember I had to speak in front of lots of people a lot of times, because between modeling and having an illness, people wanted to know my story. So it was nothing new for me. So that was also, it was also helpful. And just having the mother that I have, like, seriously, she was the reason behind why I became an activist for sickle cell, activist for just, you know, people who don't have a voice. So I owe a lot of it to my mom.
Yeah, she's a good woman.
Yes, for sure.
And so what's the future hold for you? What are you trying to do? You're in Savannah, but you're trying to get to Atlanta, and kind of what's your dream in the next year, 5 years?
Yeah, well, the next year or 5 years, I most definitely don't see myself in Savannah. I want to take, right now I'm just taking a year off in May. It's my prospective date to move to Atlanta. And I'm looking at Clark Atlanta University. I told myself, when I graduate from SCAD, I am going back to school to an HBCU, because that's an experience that I feel like every Black person should experience. And just general, Black people in general, HBCUs is something that I've always wanted to go. Well, I haven't always wanted to go to one, but
which is what, in case people don't?
Oh, historically Black college university.
Right. Thank you. Some people might not know what that means.
Yeah, I was about to say, do I want to explain why it's historic? Because that's long. But it's historic because, you know, basically. And we didn't have many rights as far as colleges, and those were the colleges that were welcoming to Black people when you couldn't go to, you know, other colleges, like predominantly white institutions. So that's what a HBCU is. But I told myself I want to go there, and you'll be very surprised of how many HBCUs do not have African American studies as a master's. So I knew I didn't want to go up north. I knew I didn't want to go to the PWI. So I looked up Clark Atlanta, and they have it. So that's the school that I'm going for. Should apply soon. So yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and after school, I plan on making documentaries about Black culture, and that's more of like a passion project things that I'll be working on, which is just projects that I'll be doing for myself. But I do see myself working with some type of production company and
very cool,
learning from them for sure.
So while you're here still in Savannah, or whether people contact you when you're in Atlanta, or just even online or email, like what kind of contact info do you have? And we'll put up on the screen too, and on social media. But where can people reach out if they have questions or conversation about sickle cell or race or filmmaking, any of that kind of stuff? Where you can be found at, or where do you want to be found at?
Well, I'm on Instagram at Kharlybia Naomi, which is Kharlybia.Naomi, which is KHARLYBIA.NAOMI, and that's my Instagram. I'm found there. I'm also on Facebook at Kharlybia Roane, which is again KHARLYBIA and Roane ROANE. I'm always open to have conversations with people. I'm always open to meet up with people and just talk about, you know, things that are, you know, they feel that they need to talk about or want questions about.
Very cool.
Yes.
Well, personally appreciate you being here. And it was when we first started this, and we're literally launching the very first episode today.
Oh, okay, nice.
People won't know that when they're watching yours, but I was like, all of a sudden I saw you on Facebook and your mom waved down. I was like, I've got to get her on the Neglected podcast and tell your story and stuff, because you're cool and you got stuff to say that's important, I think. So appreciate you being here.
For sure.
And Quinn, appreciate you producing.
No problem.
You're the man. City Church, thank you for hosting, and thanks for checking out the Neglected podcast. Peace out.